welcome to Star Wars Connection. My name is Lee and I'm here with Denise. Today we're going to continue our conversation regarding Reylo and the Last Jedi. We're going to break down the interactions between Rey and Kylo Ren. We had an earlier discussion where we focused on the dynamics between Rey and Kylo, their Force bond, and some sexual imagery and symbolism that we found very interesting in The Last Jedi. We encourage you to check that one out. In this part of the discussion, we're going to focus more on the aftermath of the events in Snoke's throne room. Let's jump right in. When the fight scene ends, Kylo is just looking at her, like he's focused entirely on her. He's just walking towards her, I don't know, it reminded me, there's a lot of Mr. Darcy stuff here. And we actually didn't even talk about this, but the elevator scene where Rey is trying to convince him and she approaches him and totally invades his personal space. And he looks down at her and it's just such a charged moment. I really love that. But then what he tells her is horrible. He tells her, you come from nothing. Your parents are drunks. You're nothing to anyone but me. And a lot of people were bothered by that wording because they thought he's just telling her that she's worthless without him. I don't think that's how he meant it, first of all. I think that Kylo obviously is a little bit narcissistic, but I think that he's genuinely trying to let her know how he feels about her. Guys, this is the Darcy proposal. This is the first proposal where he starts off by insulting her whole family and telling her that how hard he's fought to not like her because she's beneath him. But in spite of that, he loves her most ardently. I love that. And of course, she's like, ew, why are you saying this to me? And she says no.
I think it's a moment that's very vulnerable. It was in the trailer, just the image, and with just the image, you can notice how he's trembling. He's very insecure. So I think that's almost a way to put a mask, of a way to say, you're to diminish her in a way and make it easier for him to say, I like you even though you're nothing. I don't know. It's horrible anyways.
Yeah, it's awful. but I don't think it's in ill intent. I've seen a lot of people saying that, he's abusive, he's emotionally abusive and manipulative. I don't think so. I don't think Kylo's headspace is there at all. I think that he was just being honest. He's a snob. I mean, Adam Driver talked about Kylo being entitled, coming from privilege, and being used to having no equal. And then he finds this woman who's his equal in every way that matters to him. So he's telling her, I don't care if you're scavenger scum. But it comes out wrong. Don't say that, guy. Please don't start your love declaration by insulting the woman you love. That's not going to work.
Yeah, but I've seen this stuff about abuse, but it really comes from a place of hating Reylo, of wanting to label it as something that it's not. It's usually people that were really Rey walkers or Finn Rey shippers. Nothing against Finn Rey, but just these people that become aggressive against.
Yeah, and to be fair, there's also people who might like Reylo, but they've had experiences and they talk about this. I've seen this kind of dynamic play out. A friend of mine had a husband who did this to her. This isn't real life. It's a story. I guess in real life, if a friend of mine started dating Mr. Darcy and he was an ass to her, I would tell her, dump his ass, but it's literature. It's an epic story. And even Mr. Darcy, he changed. He was just posturing and then he had to basically lower those shields and show the softer side of him. And I think that's what Kylo Ren is going to do.
I think so too. And also it's not like they're in a new relationship and he's telling her that all the time, which I know it's an abusive relationship. But you know what abuse is? Abuse is telling people that they're wrong all the time and that they're seeing things. That's abuse, what people have been doing to us, all the gaslighting. And that's why people freak out. You see all the things, you see all the interviews, you see all the marketing, and people are freaking out. No, it can't be real. Reylo can't be real. Guys, it's gaslighting. Don't listen to it. But that's abuse. That's abuse. And now they're going to try to say that that's abuse. No.
To be honest with you, that is one of the things that's been most off-putting, I think, for me in this whole fandom experience is that the fact that people just can't stand that you have a different opinion. And I've seen that happen on our side of it, even among people that have the same point of view as us regarding Reylo. You dare to say something that they don't agree with, and it's they turn on you. But with people who hate Reylo, certainly, that idea that, oh, you're seeing things, you're projecting, you guys just got lucky. You guys got lucky with all your speculation. No, dude. So yeah, so we've seen a lot of that stuff, and it's gotten to the point where I've seen a lot of people just having pathological doubt. It's like, yeah, I saw it, but it's a trick. It's never going to happen. Like they internalized all this stuff, all this crap that they're getting flung at them from all directions.
They're like, oh, there's all this marketing, these interviews, but maybe they're tricking us.
Yeah, no. And it's even, I found it refreshing to like look outside of the usual places where the Reylos hang out and just listen to what like average, like regular people are saying that have seen things in the dynamic, and they feel sure. They're like, yeah, for sure they're going to end up together. Duh. That's what is the movie showing you. But the people who really want it to happen are like, oh my God, no. Reylo's done. Kylo Ren is going to be evil, and they're going to shave his head, and he's going to die. What?
Yeah.
No.
No.
But anyway, so we left off talking about
the horrible moment. I agree with you, like that he was being an asshole, but she goes there as like, my friends, which I understand her. It's her family, it's the people she loves. They're in those transports, and
yeah,
but I don't think he gets it.
I gotta drag Rey a little bit here because like he was going in for the hug. He was going in for like, oh holy shit, did you see how we wrecked those bitches? Like we took on them, we won. We're alive. You're okay. Let me make sure. And okay, let's hug it out. And she was like totally not reflecting that back to him. She was just like, the resistance. And Kylo doesn't get it. You're right. He doesn't get it. He's never gotten it. He hates the resistance. We heard Adam who said that Kylo especially hates the resistance because he feels like he had to compete with the resistance for the parents' attention. So he's got issues with the resistance. So I think it's not either of their fault. I just think that they both were in two different places at that time and they just couldn't sync up again anymore.
Yeah. And even the thing about Emperor, I don't think he was like, let's rule and make a dark world. I don't think that's where his mind was. No. It was like, let's be together and work it out. And it wasn't like he was just gonna go with her to the resistance. He couldn't, and also he couldn't just step out and say, guys, let's stop shooting. Let's all be good now. Because there's also hugs, it's just a lot more complicated than it, ideally could have been.
I just feel really bad for them both because I can see where they're both coming from and I can see why they couldn't sync up. They just need more time. Both of them need a little bit more time and to understand each other and accept each other a little bit more. Because Rey just couldn't get it, how Kylo is not ready to just like follow her and go and rescue the resistance. It doesn't make any sense that he would do that. But by the same token, it doesn't make sense that Kylo wouldn't call off the attack because his mom is there.
Yeah.
So he should have been a little bit more invested in that. But he's just so focused on Rey and their future together that he can't look past that in that moment. And you're right. I don't think that he's thinking, be my evil, my
Emperors. I don't know.
Rey Empress. Be my Rey Empress, and we'll rule this galaxy and have like an evil galactic empire. That's not where his head is at all. I think he's thinking we're the two most powerful Force users that are here in a position of power. Let's just lead. We're the best suited people to do it.
There's also another factor that it just killed Snoke, and people forget how Snoke was a father figure to him, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he should be traumatized the way he was traumatized with him, but in The Force Awakens, when he goes running to him like for advice. It was like late in his last 15 years, the figure that he turned to. So I think there is a deal of trauma for that as well. That what do I do now? How can he just reconfigure himself to something? I think it's a very difficult moment for him as well. So I kind of understand that he wasn't in the mind of I don't know. So yeah, they were just not in sync.
Like with Kylo, he saw Snoke as a father figure, as the master and the person that he was loyal to, but also he must have realized at some point that Snoke was just a predator, and he used him.
Yeah.
And he knew when Han said he's just using you for your power, Kylo knew that was true on some level. So he's grappling with these feelings and finally he kills this person. Often when a person has a complicated relationship with a parent and the parent dies, they grieve more intensely and they have a a more traumatic recovery. Like it takes so much more out of them to get over the passing of the person than if they have a good relationship. And that might sound counterintuitive, but if you think about it, when you have all this stuff that's unresolved and it's so complex, and then that's the end, they're gone, there's no hope for a resolution, and you're left with all these feelings on your own. So with Kylo, the fact that Snoke is gone would have been complicated anyway, but the fact that he did it would have been complicated. So I think Kylo was all over the place in that moment, and he was just looking to Rey to kind of be his anchor, and she was not for that. She wasn't ready to take on that role at that time. She was just thinking about what still needs to be done and my friends and the resistance and let's go. So yeah, it was just too bad. It's sad if you think about it. What really bugged me about Rey was that she just went for the lightsaber and she didn't use her words. Everybody knows. Yes. you talk, you just tell him, like, I can't do it, or let's talk about it, please, let's something. But no, just like go for the lightsaber. What was she gonna do if she got the lightsaber? Was she gonna kill him or something? I don't know. It's weird. And of course you can imagine that Kylo Ren is gonna be upset because we just saw a whole bunch of flashbacks of him about to be stabbed by his uncle in his sleep, which, we know Luke was not gonna end up doing it, but that's what he thought. So here Rey, who he trusted, is basically doing the same thing to him. It's really messed up.
Yeah, but that's really important because we were saying hope is lost because he chose the dark. When he had the option, he chose the dark and he became bad. And it's a lot more complicated than that. So that's stuff that's good. And it's interesting, like you said, with the lightsaber, when it doesn't go to her this time, right?
Yeah.
Why is that?
That's very interesting. I'm glad you asked. But one point before that, I don't think Kylo chose the dark. And it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's not about light and dark for him anymore. He's choosing his anger because that's the thing that has kept him strong throughout this whole thing. Mm-hmm. The only thing that he can rely on is the fact that his anger will fuel his power. So he chooses to not forgive, and he chooses to just say, well, F you all. I'm gonna make it, and I'm angry, and I'm gonna be the new Emperor. He has to do it. What else is he gonna do? Like cry and pine and go in a fetal position over Rey? No, he has to, So I thought it was predictable, and it makes sense to me that he would choose to do that. I thought that Rey, she should have been kinder to him, I think. But I understand where she's coming from too, because I guess she was disappointed. He looked like he was gonna come with her. It looked like she was gonna turn him. Yeah. He fought side by side with her. So she thought that they were on the same page the whole time. And then all of a sudden he's like, rule the galaxy with me. She's like, what the fuck? So I get it.
Yeah, he's also disappointed with her. Like, come on, why did she come here then? Come on. If it wasn't true.
It's so sad. It's like the romantic drama that we love. We're seeing it playing out right here. But then she goes, and I just thought it was so bad that he wakes up, and she's gone. It's like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. She just left him unconscious. But anyway, and he's like, where's Rey? And Bugs is like, oh, she stole Snoke's car.
That relates us to the sexual imagery, right? To wake up and the person's gone. It's like, oh.
Gone. Before that, I think this is a really key point. The lightsaber clearly knew that it had to go to Rey in The Force Awakens because she had a bigger claim over it. And it was not because she was Luke's daughter. It was because of the Force choosing to hand her that lightsaber so that it could kind of balance things out, right?
Yeah.
With the moment in the ship, there's no one, not Rey, not Kylo, has a bigger claim over that lightsaber than the other. So Rey is not 100% right here the way she was in The Force Awakens. Neither of them has that claim over the other. They're equals. And the Force is not going to choose a side this time. I don't like that it broke because it's Anakin's lightsaber, but I also like that it did because it's the symbolic legacy. Yeah, and it tells you that they're very much matched.
And the moment they're breaking apart is as if the legacy breaks. Like I said, you can interpret the legacy as Kylo, he breaks, or the legacy is the legacy, the future of the Skywalkers, right?
And then it ends up cradled in Rey's hands. And that is very beautiful symbolism. And it tells you that she's not a Skywalker by birth, but she will play a key role in protecting that legacy, either because of what she does for Kylo Ren going forward, or because maybe even she will be the one to continue that legacy by maybe bringing the new Skywalkers into, the galaxy, literally. One thing I liked also is that because the lightsaber is cracked Now she has maybe the kyber crystals cracked. Maybe she can build a double-bladed lightsaber, and it'll be another callback to Bastila Shan, you know? This is awesome. Because I don't know if she has time to go and get a kyber crystal for herself, so she may just repurpose that one and build it.
Maybe. Lots of awesome possibilities.
So what about when Kylo Ren... This is another part of the movie that I think upset a lot of Reylos. When Kylo Ren tells Luke, I'll destroy her also, I'll destroy it all. Guys, he's just talking crap, you know? Kylo Ren in that moment is just angry. He just got owned by Luke and he's upset and he's just talking smack. He doesn't mean that he's literally going to destroy Rey. I don't think he could ever bring himself to do it. Kylo is awesome and we love him. But Kylo's a dick. You guys know that, right? Like, I mean, is this news to anybody? The guy's not, you know, he needs a lot of work. He's not perfect, and he says dumb shit sometimes like that. Yeah. But I don't think that means that he doesn't care about her and that he's going to try to kill her in episode 9. I don't think so. And even if he says he will, he's never going to be able to hurt her. I don't think so.
Yeah, he's never really. And also there's the part where he says, blow that junk out of the sky. What is it? Which sounds awesome. I'm sorry. I love it. And people are saying, well, she was in it. But what I think is that he's so out of it at that moment. I don't think he feels that he's there. He just looks at it and it's the Millennium Falcon. It's his father's ship. And imagine all the memories of what he doesn't have, right? You know, of what he's being cut out of.
To be honest with you,
painful.
Even I forgot that Rey was in the ship at that point. I just thought, oh, yeah. And Finn's like, oh, yeah, they hate that ship. Yeah. I mean, that's what you're thinking of. You're not thinking, oh, my God, he wants to kill Rey right now. No, that's not. I don't think that's where his head was at all.
No. I don't think he noticed, and I don't think, and that I think that also explains why maybe he didn't even feel that Leia was there. He was just so out of it, and because not in the beginning, you know, when he was really angry, he sensed his mother, and you know, he didn't shoot, and he had that, but we don't have anything of that, and either it was a mistake, or if we're gonna, you know, use a headcanon to fix it, we can imagine that he was so out of it that he didn't feel anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing is that, you know, again, Kylo is clinging to his anger. He's using it as his, you know, lifeline at this point. It's all he has left, right? His anger, because Rey left him. The lightsaber's broke. Snoke is dead.
Snoke is gone.
He's got nothing. So he's clinging to that anger, and in that moment when people who have an anger problem, and I know I do, when you're angry, sometimes it's like, you know, it's just blinding, and I can understand that. I can see where he's coming from. I don't think that if he were cool-headed, he would say those things, and I don't think he would say, kill them all, no prisoners. You know, that's just anger. And maybe he wouldn't have been able to go through with it either. We don't know. But the point is, Kylo is not a good guy. He's got light in him, but he's not acting like a good guy right now, and he's a villain. So that's okay. That doesn't mean that he's going to remain that way. I think there's just a lot of anxiety because of how things were left off, you know.
Yeah, but you know, remember when we were seeing the first teaser trailer, and I said, oh my God, the turning starts earlier, right? And I thought it wasn't going to go in a straight line, and that, you know, it could end in a
I remember, yeah. I remember you said that.
And I said, but I know people were worried because the people who didn't like it were saying so many things that maybe we thought it was more terrible than it actually was, and that, you know, if they portrayed him as a villain, having something to do with Rey, everybody would hate it. But, you know, in the end it worked. He was still a villain, and he has this beautiful special connection. But, you know, both are true at the same time.
Exactly. So then we find that final scene where they share this, and this is really good too for people who are still worried about the fact that Snoke claimed that he was the one who opened up their connection, because Snoke is dead. And if you realize, the moment when Snoke died, Rey, who had been suspended in the air by Snoke through the Force, she fell because he's dead. So everything that he's creating it ceases, right? So if it were true that it was Snoke's doing, then the connection would have been broken forever between them. But they're still connected in the Force because Kylo Ren is in that in the salt mine, and then Rey is on the ship, and they're so far away from each other, but they're right there in the same room in a way. And it's a very sad scene, I think, because he looks so sad. You know, he looks broken, and just he looks like you want to give him a hug. He's on his knees, and he's got this cape. I don't know. He looks so sad.
It's sad sad also because she's in the Millennium Falcon, and if you think of it as, his parents, his father's ship, and it represents, the family, love, friendship, all these things that he doesn't have, right? Human connection, and there's a lot of love in that ship.
Yeah.
And he's out, and she's in, and
she's leaving without him.
Yeah.
and he belongs there. I mean, he's been solo. He belongs there more than anyone else, but he can't be there. It is a sad moment. And what I like about it, I know people were saying, "Oh my gosh, she shut the door on Reylo." No, she shut the door on Kylo Ren. She looks at him in a way. If she hated him, she would have made a face. She would have shut the door. She wouldn't have cast him another glance. She would have, there's so many ways that she could have conveyed that, but she actually, there's a pause there. There's a moment where she's looking at him and it's what's going to happen here? And then, of course, she shuts the door. There's nothing else she could have done.
And I know that in a way it's similar to the end of The Force Awakens, right? When she also looks back at him from the Millennium Falcon. But I think, it has been changed. Things changed. Sometimes things change, and also sometimes things are repeated, sometimes things are repeated twice, and you have third time is the charm.
Yeah.
Repeat twice to establish a pattern, and then you break the pattern. So I think it's interesting. Yes, it's similar, but it's at the same time it's different. So I kind of like it. I think it's cool.
I like it too, and I'm actually, this kind of directly contradicts what I had said in previous podcasts, because I was thinking of it they're not going to have the same thing play out again, because you only do that when you're trying to hammer the point home. No, but remember, this is a fairy tale, and I actually had a conversation about this with Irina the other day. The fact that in fairy tales, the 3 times, right? There's that imagery of you have to do it 3 times, and third time's the charm. So it's okay if this time there are differences, and we are getting a contrast between how things ended with them in The Force Awakens, where he was just a monster. And now he's Ben to her. He's never going to be not Ben, because they've had this moment of forced communion, right? And by the way, communion, we saw it in the marketing. Now we understand that moment when they touched hands. That was their forced communion. The commune.
How are they going to describe it, right? I mean, what?
Yep, and they resonate together. All this stuff
definitely,
came true.
Definitely. That's what I thought. I was like, oh my God, that marketing, it said everything. And things that sounded weird, but they were actually absolutely correct.
Spot on, right on the nose, yeah.
Yes.
But, I'm very hopeful by that ending. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think that I have my issues with the movie still. I think it should have ended way sooner than that. Maybe after the battle. Maybe it should have ended on him extending his hand to her and, oh my God, what's she going to do? But, whatever. The point is, for where it ended, I think it was the best possible ending, because that there's hope there because of how he's left sad, and because of the glance that she gives him, and because they even have a forced connection to begin with. So I'm really hopeful. I did not like a lot of people, the fact that she looks like she's totally cool, after closing the door on him. And it's people wanted to see her a little bit distraught or whatever, and
but
she wasn't.
Is, I think. You see? I know that there's the scene of Poe where she's that's the scene from The Force Awakens, it's very similar. That was cut from The Force Awakens. But later when she's sitting down alone, right, she looks at Finn and Rose. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that she's jealous of Finn and Rose. What does it mean when she looks at Finn and Rose? And she then looks at the 2 parts of the lightsaber that are apart. Think about it. I don't think she's okay.
I see what you're getting at. She's looking at what Finn and Rose have and thinking of what she and Kylo could have.
Yeah,
that's one interpretation.
So.
What's not happening because they're broken apart, like the lightsaber.
They're broken. And then Leia comes and kind of comforts her. Maybe the scene that's standing out there is the scene where everybody's happy. And her scene with Poe, maybe. I love Poe. I think he's a really cool character. And I don't know, maybe, it shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, and it just kind of breaks it's out of place. I think it's the tone is kind of off because of it. But I can see that they needed. I mean, guys, it doesn't make any sense that Rey and Poe haven't met until the final moments of the second movie. They had to meet at some point, so I guess. But
I think. But also for that ending, he's very sad. Like you said on the previous podcast, he's defeated. He's sad. He's has nothing. He holds to that dice and. So that means one, he's not evil, angry Kylo Ren. He's not angry at her because he's not angry, and like he still likes her. So there is hope for that.
Absolutely. And one more thing about Kylo Ren's arc and redemption. If you look at it, there's all these little things that are pulling at Kylo and reminding him of his family and of Ben Solo. Aside from the fact that Rey keeps calling him Ben, and he answers to it. He's like, yeah, that's me. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't ignore her. He knows he's Ben. But the dice in his hand, the fact that they went from Luke to Leia to him, that's pretty cool. And then the fact that Luke, we were actually talking about this in the previous podcast, and Ellie was saying that it seemed out of place for Luke to say, see you around, kid. Yeah, because that's Han talking. That's not Luke. Yeah. Luke did it on purpose, to remind Kylo of his dad. And then the fact that Luke tells him, if you strike me down in anger, I'll always be with you like your dad. All of this is calling to Kylo, is reminding him of who he is. And they wouldn't put that in there if Ben Solo wasn't there still. So I have no doubt that we're going to see that turn. I don't know that it's going to be the way we're expecting. So I think a lot of people are thinking that Kylo is going to magically become Ben Solo, and it's like the last 2 years didn't exist for him. But no, I mean, there's always going to be Kylo Ren in him, but there's always going to be Ben Solo in him. But I think what we're hoping for, I think will happen. I think we've seen so many good signs of that, and even more than I expected, to be honest with you. So.
Yes, and let's remember that there are so many signs about it in The Force Awakens, and we're gonna have JJ for the last, so we know it's not gonna go in a crazy different direction.
Exactly.
So, but I do agree with you. Kylo Ren is there as well, and I think maybe he has to accept both sides of him, because there's something interesting in Kylo Ren as well. His power. He's very powerful. There are good things in it. That maybe he's going to come to a balance, right?
Yes, yeah. I think so. I mean, balance is the key here. It's been the key. Even in The Force Awakens, not just especially in this movie, but in The Force Awakens also, we saw that, we all knew, when we saw that moment where Kylo and Rey's lightsabers are aligned, and it just, we knew that had to represent something, and I think we saw it here, and we're going to see it come full circle towards the end. But wanted to talk a little bit about the reaction of the Reylo dynamic. I was so scared that there was going to be a big backlash towards Reylo. That was one of the things I was most nervous of. Okay. And it hasn't been the case at all. I think even, and again, full disclosure, I have problems with the movie. I talked about it extensively in the previous podcast. I'm not going to get into it now. But I will say this. Because I had issues with it, I've read a lot of the hate. I went out and I read all the negative reviews and all this and saw podcasts that people made. They're hilarious, by the way. You should check them out. But every hater that I saw, as angry as they were at The Last Jedi, they all loved Rey and Kylo together. Nobody that I saw said anything bad. They all loved the fight. They loved the team up, and they loved the dynamic. They thought it was interesting. So I'm just super encouraged by this, because I would be scared if there had been a backlash. But I've seen some haters complaining, of course, but nobody cares.
They've been complaining for 2 years.
So the fact is that the mainstream media outlets are talking about this in such a positive way, and they're actually saying the S word. They're saying there's a sexual thing going on, and it's fascinating, and this is the sexiest movie. I saw a Vogue review. It basically says that if this were an HBO series or real life, these two characters would be allowed to resolve their conflict, and their dynamic would reach its natural conclusion that they would end up, doing it, because they have this lust and they have this unspoken sexual dynamic, and it's like they should be allowed to tear each other's clothes off. I mean, that's in Vogue, about Kylo and Rey. You guys, what a time to be alive. If you think about us for the past 2 years talking about this, and people say, you're crazy. You're reading into it. That's not what they're intending. No, this was what they were intending from the start, and I think they pulled it off beautifully.
Yeah, I didn't mind the crazy comments, but the comments that I'm I don't know, morally deranged or stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. Ridiculous. But I agree with you, and nobody's saying that it's bad. I haven't seen one single review complaining that it's bad example or that Rey is a bad example. And like you said, it was really cool to do the podcast with you because I understood the haters, and I agree with you that the people who hated, they have similar issues that you had. And it's controversial not because of Reylo, but because of the treatment given to some characters. So that's really neat, for Reylo, and if that's what excites you about the trilogy. But I think that's the core of the trilogy, right? So people can be excited for the next one.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I think became apparent with this movie, and another thing that I saw a lot of people just picking up on, even the haters, that this story is about Kylo and Rey. It's not about, X or Y. It's about their connection with each other, and that's where we're gonna hopefully see things heading in 9. And it's just awesome. It's so unique,
But just you're saying about things heading in 9, a lot of people are worried as well. But I think you can do a lot in a movie, and I don't see his situation as so established because there's also Hux, and I think lots of things can happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks here because one of the questions I have, and I talked about it before, is who's going to be the big bad? Like, if Kylo's it now, they can't just introduce like a bad guy at the 9th hour. They have to,
But there's Hux. There's Hux.
The problem I have with that is that they played Hux so ridiculously over the top in this one, so he's not going to be a convincing bad guy. How are they going to, because it's such a change in tone they did it over the top in this one. He's actually very submissive to Kylo, so if Kylo's not the big bad, he's not going to be intimidated by Hux. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. I'm wondering, and I don't know if it was you who mentioned this before, but maybe the idea is that there isn't a big bad, But
But I think just because their last glances, between Hux and Kylo, they were, Hux almost killed him when he saw him. And then there was a rivalry that I think is going to be explored. And I agree he was a little bit ridiculous, but, he does command the army, like if both of them were to give an order to, to the army, I think, Hux has a bigger command of the First Order, because Kylo wasn't that involved. So I think it could play out.
But we're not going to have a Force big bad? Like, that, I don't know.
You're not going to have a Force-sensitive big bad. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I don't know. But I'm not going to stress out over it. Like, I guess they have it figured out. A lot of people are saying maybe Snoke is going to come back. I hope not.
No.
We're done.
I'm sorry.
But I do think Luke will come back. I think that's guaranteed. I mean,
yes.
I don't see how he wouldn't. But yeah, there's a lot of anxiety about 9. I understand that. But one thing that I'm certain about is that it's not over with Kylo and Rey. It's not over. And Kylo is not happy with where he's left. And one thing I'm hoping is that he's going to be an amazing Emperor. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he's going to suck at it. No, I want him to succeed. I want him to be amazing at it and still choose to set that aside for Rey. And that's what I'm thinking is going to happen.
I think that's really important for him to get everything he wants. Mm-hmm. It's funny because we did the Avatar and I said, for Zuko, that he got everything he wanted. And that was a very important point in his redemption. Because if he had gone from bottom good, it's not as interesting as suddenly having everything you want and getting it. But also I think, people like Kylo more now because he was successful at something, which he wasn't in The Force Awakens. And I saw something today that I wanted to mention, because remember we were talking about masculinity and how Kylo is not so much. And I saw like an electric shaving, I don't know the name, I live in a French city, electric shaving machine, like for shaving, which was red and black. It had a picture of Kylo Ren for grown-up kids, like men. And I was thinking, wow, a shaving thing with Kylo Ren, that's super masculine, right? So they're picking him for this thing that's super masculine. And it's interesting for people who are like, oh, maybe Poe is a more traditionally, masculine symbol, but they're not going to put Poe in the shaving thing. They're not going to do a Poe shaving machine. I know that's not the name. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of this thing. But they're doing it with Kylo, so I think that's the one people are going to identify with, in a way. That's the, I don't know, that's the one, that people are actually going to like. And or love to hate in a way, or love to be evil.
I think that they did a really good job, like rehabilitating Kylo Ren's image as a badass dude, because a lot of the people who were saying that he was weak, now they love him. They're like, oh my God. Like, first of all, dude, Adam Driver is ripped. Look at his pecs and his arms. You know, anybody has to be impressed with that. And then you have him just like totally just owning Snoke and teaming up with Rey and being soft and sensitive, but also like, you know, tough and strong. And it's just awesome. I think they did such a great job with him. And
I also thought he looked really good. Yeah, we said he wasn't looking very good. You know, remember when we saw the behind the scenes, but it was from the beginning, right? When he's there and we see, and later I thought he looked really good. You know,
he looked really good. Yes.
He got like the eyes and the hair, you know, all dark, and the light they put, you know.
He looked fabulous. Really cool. Yeah.
Yes. So it was good.
So Denise, are you happy with Reylo in episode 8?
Yes. I mean, the movie is short, right? You can't do a lot. And then now we learned about what the deleted scenes were, and they're not Reylo. But I think, you know, there's an issue of pacing, you know. They can't do a movie only with that, because it's not going to be as sizzling with tension if you have only that. So you have to pace it out and have some things that are more, you know, normal. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm gonna say I'm happy. What about you?
I'm very happy. I'm very pleased, and that's why I'm gonna watch it a third time.
Yeah, I wish I could, but it's expensive. It takes a lot of time. I don't know.
You should do it because you should. I mean, you know, then we have to wait for the DVD to come out and all that. So. Yeah, go for it, Denise.
I will. I'll wait a little bit when it's, you know, not so full anymore.
I saw a tweet where the guy was saying, like, my favorite part of the Last Jedi was when Kylo Ren told Rey that her dad was dead, but that he could be her daddy if she wanted. Like, oh my God. Like, I love how people are just going with it, you know? They totally embrace that.
Yeah, there's so many jokes. Yeah, I love it. I think it's gonna be, the fandom is gonna be a lot happier now. Of course, the people who were complaining the other day, I had to go and say that they're saying, you know what? It was fake. It was only Snoke, and now they're apart. You see, it was nothing. And I said, it doesn't matter if they're apart and if they're never gonna be together again. What we were saying is that they were gonna have a connection, that they were gonna have a romantic arc, and both are canon. And they were like, we never said they couldn't have a connection. Of course you said, but you know, I didn't want to continue fighting. It just, you know, and now they're saying we never said they couldn't have a connection. I don't know what they're gonna say anymore, but you know, if people, we need to ignore these people, you know. And I understand I don't know, just let them be, whatever.
Yeah, I think that everything is like overwhelmingly Reylo positive now, and it's just a few haters who are still like bitching about it, and I think it's easy to tune them out. And I actually, somebody was saying to me the other day, you know what, you've been wanting Reylo for so long and you got it. There's nothing to be mad about. That has really helped me to get over a lot of my issues and just say, I'm just going to enjoy it because, guys, like, it paid off. Like, everything we went through for the last 2 years, they delivered, and it was just so awesome.
I am also happy for us, like, as a project, you know, because we've been talking about it and talking about these things and predicting these things and predicting correctly when, you know, like, very few people were predicting correctly. Even some people who are, like, you know, who like Reylo were not predicting that it would be romantic. So, see, we got it. Yes.
All right, guys. Well, we want to thank you for listening in. And I think this is actually going to be our last episode before Christmas. So we want to wish you a Merry Christmas and congratulations, because Reylo is real. So, you know, you can reach us at StarWarsConnection09@gmail.com. You can write to us on our YouTube page. You can connect with us on Tumblr and Mixcloud. Until next time, may the Force be with you.